Hello everybody, JGC Anime here, and today we are going to be reviewing Is Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Arrow of the Orion, the movie, or Dungeoni de wo Motemuru no wa Machikataru Daro ka movie Orion no ya. This is a technical filler movie towards season 2. I just happened to forget what order it went in, so I ended up watching this movie after season 2. But I believe all you really need in order to watch this movie is the first season of the main series and the first season of Sword Oratoria. And that's about it to really get a basis of this movie. But yeah, this is the next piece of Danmachi content I wanted to cover, so let's just hop right into it. So, what is Arrow of the Orion? Or Orion or something, I don't remember how they pronounce it in the movie. But the basic premise is a new character called Artemis shows up in the town of Orion and is seeking some person to wield a special spear/arrow that she created. And it just so happens that it picks Belle Crenell, aka our main character. And then with her, along with Hestia, Lily, Welf, and everybody else, with all of them, they go on this little quest to take down some threat that's hurting the world. And yeah, basically just a very simple movie premise, I guess. But yeah, that was probably a terrible description, but let's just roll with it. So, what do I like and dislike about this? By saying like some spoiler-free thoughts, it was okay. I'm just gonna come out and say it. It was just okay. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't anything like super phenomenal. It was just okay. Like, out of all the Danmachi stuff I've been watching, it is probably one of the most mediocre things I have watched from this series. It's nothing overly fantastic. It's nothing special. And it has run the generic course that I will go into in the spoiler section that I just absolutely hate. And I've clarified several times on the channel. But it's just alright. The animation is definitely a bit higher budget than the normal anime, but only in some scenes. Most of the time it can also look cheaper, but not too often. It looks normal most of the time. But I definitely do have some issues with the story where they'll randomly have these little extra scenes thrown in that don't really add anything to the plot and just kind of exist to really give stuff like fan service and such. And the ending was a bit meh and also a bit confusing as well, which again, I'll go into in the spoiler section. But overall, this movie it didn't really stick out to me. It wasn't anything unique, nothing original, nothing cool. It was just a movie that was there. And I'm a bit upset to say about that. I'm a bit upset to say that because I love this series. I love every single season of this show. I even really like the spin-off a lot. So the fact that this movie could be so disappointing and just so mediocre it's kind of upsetting to me. But yeah, the characters are all fine. Belle still plays his role as the main character quite well. And Artemis isn't that bad of a new character to the series, but I don't know, but just there are some characters I don't really care for. Hestia, didn't really care for her much in this movie. Even though she was one of the more major players in the movie, I didn't really care about what role she had to play. In fact, sometimes I wondered why she's even there other than to like push things with Artemis because she has a relationship, like a good friendship with Artemis. I understand the main crew is there, and then some characters just kind of pop up because they were in Sword Oratoria, which helps you really connect the dots between those two series. But overall, this movie is definitely just a mediocrity. But to go into why, I guess I am just gonna have to enter the spoiler section of this. So let's just do it. Here is a timestamp to when the video will be reaching its conclusion, and I'll be giving my final rating on this. If you have seen this series, then I'd recommend sticking around and hearing my thoughts. But if you haven't, then I'd recommend skipping to the end because you don't want to be spoiled. But if you have seen it, I'd recommend sticking around and hearing my spoiler thoughts. So yeah, we're gonna count down from 5 and enter the spoiler section. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so when I mentioned that there is a generic thing that all anime movies do pretty much, it's kill off the newly introduced character. I mentioned that Artemis was a newly introduced character. If you couldn't already figure out by what I just described, she dies by the end. Although, I really don't get why. The whole thing is that Artemis her body was absorbed by this giant monster creature, and because of that, she wanted Belle to use the arrow she created to killed her, so it would kill the monster, but it was such a confusing way of how they told it, because how it ends is Bell uses his Argonaut skill along with the arrow to kill the monster, and then after that, even though he breaks Artemis's body out of the thing that it was captured in, he kills her anyway, which confuses me. Like, does that mean that, are you saying that as long as she's alive, the monster's alive? Could they not just get her out of there? Why does she have to die? Why does Bell have to kill her? And why is he not fatally, but like, why isn't he like mentally scarred by the fact that he killed a god, even though he like loves God so much? Why does this not impact the series at all? And it constantly creates these awkward things in the story that don't feel like they make too much sense. Again, for some reason, at the end, Bell has to kill Artemis, even though he's freed her now. She's completely free to go back to living her life, even if all of her children and her family are dead. She could go back and continue to live life, but instead he's just like, yeah, no, even though we could get her out of here, I'm just gonna stab her because, you know, that's what she wanted. And I felt like that was a little unexplained. Like, it didn't feel right. It felt so awkward. Plus, also, the final fight scene, while not bad, definitely could have been better. And I think one of the biggest flaws, as stupid as it may sound, is the soundtrack they used in the movie. The soundtrack isn't bad, but I really was hoping that when the scene came up with the Argonaut skill and Bell having to take down the monster, I was expecting something to really build up the hype, like the theme that played when he was fighting the Minotaur. I love that theme. It really gets me hyped whenever Bell does anything cool. It always gets me excited to see what he's gonna do. Even if it's not something like super duper cool, it still gets me hyped enough to think, wow, what's he gonna do? But they didn't use it here, so they just used some weird, kind of almost like a soundtrack, but it just didn't feel right. It just kind of felt off in a way where it could have been really good, but it ended up just feeling rather awkward. And yeah, the other characters are in the movie. I would have loved a lot more of something more, I guess. Like, there is this side premise actually where while Bell and the others are fighting this weird monster, it's causing all of the monsters in the dungeon to try to rush to the surface, and Eyes, along with a lot of other people, are trying to hold off the monsters. And I personally thought the idea of the monsters running rampant sounds like a way more interesting storyline than what we were actually following. So much so that I wish we got to see more of that than what we actually got with the main story. And it just, I didn't care for it. And then there's this whole thing where they were trying to set up the idea that Artemis and Bell might have found somewhat of a love for each other, which is fine, I guess, but I don't know. Just, Artemis isn't a bad character, but I feel like she didn't have enough time to really develop into a character. Plus, again, I still don't understand why they had to kill her off when they probably could have gotten her out of there. It didn't make too much sense to me, and the ending of everything is just, it's not great, but it's not the worst thing I've seen. It's just that this movie plays very cookie cutter. Like, it does everything safe in order to ensure it's not like a super big or super great movie, but it's nothing to make it seem bad either. It's just like that weird middle ground. It's kind of like how I felt when I was watching the movie for Demon Slayer, where it didn't feel like anything special, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was very fine. And while I do think the Demon Slayer movie is a bit better than this one, I don't think that this movie is very good. As sad as it is for me to say this, it's not bad. I will say that much. It's not bad, but it does have a lot of pointless filler. And I honestly wish that we got a bit more substance from it, since it's a very short movie. They just barely pad over the hour and 20-minute mark. And that's just because they just threw in these little extra side things. Like, there are some things you can't cut out, but there are things you also can cut out. Like, there's this random scene where a bunch of guys along with Hermes are trying to sneak a peek at the girls' bath, which I get it. It's funny. It's a joke. I get it. It is very funny when I watched it. I did chuckle and think it was pretty funny. But was it necessary? No. The only part that was really necessary was Belle ending up seeing Artemis, and they dance and get to know each other a bit better, I guess. But yeah, I guess the impact of everything just didn't feel right to me. It just felt like there was both too much at stake, but also too little at stake. Like, there should have been more of a story there, but there wasn't. I guess I'm just saying that the movie could have been so much better, but it's just a filler movie to fill the time till season 2 had come out, which I forgot was part of season 1's story technically, so I could have watched this before I watched season 2, but I didn't end up watching it till after, and it's still fine. I got a few laughs out of it, but overall, it just was fine. There wasn't anything special or unique about it, and it just didn't stick out in any way, shape, or form compared to the rest of the series, where I just cannot get enough of the rest. And that's sad to me, because I love Danmachi. I love the series. I may not like the light novels as much. I haven't read the manga, so I can't give an opinion on that. But the anime, I've watched everything from the anime. Even, like, the really weird OVAs. Like, those OVAs are strange. I don't know if I'll review them or not, but they are strange. Overall, though, just a fine movie. So far, the weakest part of Danmachi to me, but yeah. We're at the conclusion of this video, and what are my final thoughts? That's alright. It's just alright. It's not anything like super unique or original. It's just kind of a generic cookie cutter anime movie that gets the job done, doesn't overstay its welcome, and just kind of plays the role it's meant to play. So that's why I probably have to give this movie, since it's not like a terrible movie like the fairy tale movie or anything, but it definitely just plays on the generic stuff, and that's why I probably have to give it a 6 out of 10. It was entertaining at parts. There were parts I actually found myself really enjoying, but other parts I was just like, this isn't for me. This does not feel right for a Danmachi story, and that's just how it is. But yeah, I look forward to checking out season 3 next, and I hope it'll be quite enjoyable. So that's all I have to say. Thank you all for watching. If you're new to the JGC Anime channel, don't forget to subscribe. I also welcome new anime fans to the channel, and I will see you all around. Peace!